It's my birthday month, so no one gets to control my TBR but me. But I do still want to work towards reading more books off my physical TBR, mostly so I can make room for more books that I want to buy. Welcome back to Espresso Shots and Epic Plots. I'm Genevieve, and welcome to the series where I read down my physical TBR, this month with a birthday twist. Let's do some math first. I started May with 134 physical books, which was pretty good. Throughout the month, I read 4 of those books. I read some really big chunkers, so see my May wrap up to see what all I read. And then I added 9 books. At the end of my April cleaning out my TBR, I had a bunch of books that I took to half-price books, and when I turned them in, I bought some more. So this brings my total, starting in June, to 139 books. I have a feeling we're gonna add some more this month. It's June. We just had graduation. I only have a couple more days of doing school/work related things, and then my summer's really going to begin. So I wanted to do something a little bit different this month. So I wrapped 20 books that I absolutely want to read. There is not a single book here that I would be upset about. There are no punishment reads, there are no books that I've been avoiding. In fact, these are books that I really, really want to read. I wanted to only read things that I wanted to in the month of June. So I wrapped them all, and I think I did a pretty good job of not knowing which one's which. There's a couple that, like by size, I might know what they are, but it's a mixture of paperback and hardcover. It's a mixture of lengths, but I want to read them all. And instead of just picking one book to read, since I spent the time wrapping all of them, I figured I would spin a spinner wheel, and that would be the book that I would start with, and I would just keep reading and vlogging until we get towards the end of the month. This is a little bit different for me. If you know me, I'm very type A. I like to pick all of my books out at the beginning of the month, know when I'm gonna read them, kind of sort of figure out the order, like really plan out my month. So part of this is gonna be a little hard for me because I'm only picking one at a time. I'm trying really hard not to like pick them all right now. So I don't know how many books I'm gonna get through because it really just kind of depends on how big the ones that I get are. For each book that I pick, I will tell you a little bit about it before we begin, maybe give you like a brief midway check-in, and then I'll tell you how I ended up feeling about it by the end. It's June 1st. I'm ready to find out what I'm gonna be reading. Let me shuffle, give these a shuffle. Shuffle, 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 shuffle. What number do we have? I'm honestly excited about all of them. Oh, 5. So we got number 5. All right, so they're in order. They're in number order. Basically, I wrapped them all, put them on here, and then numbered them. Oh, so we've got a pink one. The wrapping paper means absolutely nothing. I just had them in a pile and then wrapped them. This is definitely a paperback. I'm trying to decide if I want to try to keep the paper or not. I can't imagine that I would use it again. I'm not going to try to keep the paper. Okay, well, I'll let you guys see it first. Although this is probably the back of the book based on how I wrap things. Okay, let's see what we got. Oh, I think I know what this is. Yep, female fantasy. I'm pretty excited about this one. This is like a book within a book kind of story, but this one is supposed to be a little bit funny. The audio narrator is one of my favorite audio narrators. I don't remember her name right off the top of my head. She has a very distinct voice. She's not as popular as the woman that narrates for Emily Henry or anything like that, but she's definitely narrated a couple of books that I've read. Essentially, this is about a woman who ends up, I think it goes a little bit crazy, a little bit off the rails. I think you need to suspend your disbelief with this book. She's a really big fan of this book, this character, I think in a romance novel, and she finds out that the character in the book is based off of a real person, and she kind of becomes a little bit unhinged and starts like obsessively stalking, we'll say, the person that the character actually is based off of. I heard about this book. I actually originally heard about it through Kayla at Books and Lala. It was a book that she read that she really enjoyed, and what interested me in looking more into it is the audio audio narrator. She mentioned the audio narrator, the audiobook narrator, and then played a little bit of her voice, and I knew right away who it was. And so I then looked into this book more and just kind of became interested in what it was about. If I remember right, it has very mixed reviews on Goodreads, which doesn't really shy me away from anything. This is what we'll be starting with. I'll make sure to check in, keep you posted on how I feel. All right, until then, it's nighttime and we're in the process of getting ready for bed, and I don't normally try to film right now because there's usually too much going on, but I am halfway through this and I can already tell that I'm going to be way more than halfway through this come tomorrow morning. So I figured I would do a quick check-in right now so that I don't get too far away from giving you any information. So first and foremost, it's been a while since I've read a contemporary romance. I definitely went through a phase where I was reading a ton of them back to back. I forgot how easy they are to read, how easy they are to consume. And this one I knew had a little bit of a different twist. I always love them when they have a little bit of a different twist. So we have she's a writer. She mostly does like copy editing. Then she writes a lot of fanfic for one of her favorite books, which is in fact a fantasy romance about mer people. She's had some struggles in love and life. She is a woman of color. Her family is of Iranian descent. She lives in this really small town, so she grew up being judged. They also kind of hinted at in 2001, 9/11 is where things really started to get bad. Friends that she had previously had all of a sudden like weren't talking to her and things like that. Anyway, not really the point of the story, but she has gotten through a lot of these struggles and found her femininity, if you will, through romance novels. And this one in particular, this made-up one in particular, is one that she writes fan fiction for. And as I mentioned previously, she finds out that the main character of her favorite fan fiction, who is like the love of her life, her ideal mate, the man she's been waiting for, is based off of a real person. And so she goes on this adventure-ish to go find him. And I knew that it was going to get off the rails, but it went off the rails in a way that I wasn't expecting. About a third of the way in, all of a sudden it was like, okay, that's not what I was expecting. Not in a bad way. It was just not off the rails in the way that I thought. What's interesting about it is every other chapter is an excerpt from the novel that she's enjoying. It's about mer people. You can kind of tell from the edges how it's like gray every other. That's because those are the excerpts. You can always tell when you're reading an excerpt because it has a little mer person at the top and then it's a gray background and things like that. So it's really two books in one is what it is. What I will say, the writing in the real life is very modern, very funny, very pro-feminine, pro-female. It's representative of the author. The writing of the romance, I'm hoping, I think, is supposed to be a little tongue-in-cheek. It's a little like over the top. It is not a fantasy romance that I think I would read and enjoy. I think it's a little bit silly, but you know, I mean, that doesn't mean that it's bad or anything like that. I'm imagining it's like, it has some ACOTAR vibes. It is probably a little bit like the Empyrean series, except it's about mer people, which I think the mer people is the part that makes me feel silly about it. I don't know why. What's different between fairies and dragons and mer people? So anyway, I'm really enjoying it. It's really easy to read. I'm not annotating or anything. I have a feeling I know where the romance arc of the story is going. That does not say anything about the plot of the story because the plot is definitely going in different directions, which is kind of funny. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I like the main character. I like her voice. I like the writing. I'm feeling connections. I'm believing in the people. I'm believing in their story. She mentions her past romances, the men that she previously dated. There was one that like really did a number on her and caused lots of problems. And I keep getting all of their names confused, but I don't think that you need to know that. Like, you know her brother's name, you know her brother's best friend's name. She talks about her parents, and those are really the main people that you need to know about. And so all the other names don't really matter. That's okay. I'm not, no fault or anything like that. So I just wanted to make sure that I checked in, tell you that it's going well. It's been a really quick read, but I wanted to check in before I accidentally read way too much because it's going very quickly because that's how consumable it is. I am tandem reading with the audio because I love this audio narrator. She's one of my favorite. Oh, I was going to tell you her name. Narrated by Samantha Brentmore. And I know that Samantha Brentmore also uses, not alias, they have aliases for audiobook narrators because the book that I originally heard her narrate was a new adult YA plus fantasy series. And that was not the name that it was under, but I knew it was her voice. And so I went digging and figured out that she used like a pseudonym. That's the word I was looking for. for. She used a pseudonym depending on what genre. Like lots of audiobook narrators do that. They'll use pseudonyms for, romance versus fantasy or YA versus adult and stuff like that. And I thought that was interesting. Her voice is great. She is of Middle Eastern descent, and so she meets the character really well. But I have never heard a female narrator do male voices so well. Like even better than the woman that does the Emily Henry books. Like she also does a really good job of, doing male voices and female voices. But Samantha Brantmore, man, she's like, I could listen to her voice all day. Like even the cheesy romance parts and like the cheesy mer romance, like her voice like really hits home there. So this is my 50% check-in. I would say it's going well. I'll keep you posted on when I get to the end. I am gonna go ahead and I'm gonna spin for my next book. I know this is not gonna take me long to get through, so I wanna spin and unwrap. I'm gonna shuffle. Oops, I always accidentally double tap. Shuffle. Okay, I'm nice and shuffled. 5's not on there. Okay. Make sure my face isn't in it. Okay, what'd we get? 8. All right, let's see what 8 is. Okay, 8's another skinny one. Feels like another paperback. So I'll show you that so I pulled number 8. Actually, I'm gonna do it this way. Let's see. I think it's upside down based on where the barcode is. I have no idea what this is. Oh wait, maybe I do. Oh yeah, oh wow, totally different vibe. Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. This is a mystery thriller that has like a mixed media vibe. It is about a woman that everybody thinks that she committed or was involved in this crime. She goes away, life goes on, but then a true crime podcast kind of like reopens it, and she comes home because of it. It's like years later, years have passed. The crime podcast is called Listen for the Lie. And I've heard really good things about this. I know these are not normally my like main genre. Man, this is interesting. So I had a romance and now I have a mystery thriller. And so my birthday month is really making me read outside of my typical fantasy sci-fi comfort zone. So another good one that I'm looking forward to. I will be sure to check in when I'm done with this and also let you know about this one when I get started. I'm really glad I gave you that check-in on female fantasy when I did, because I definitely stayed up late last night and just finished this. I was getting to the point where I was like kind of falling asleep, but then I was like, I only have like one more chapter, and they read really quick. I definitely forgot how bingeable contemporary romance books are, because it's been a while since I've read one. So I ended up giving this 4.25 stars. It was interesting to rate. I couldn't decide if I was rating 2 books or not. So I mentioned previously that this has the story within the story. There's the fantasy romance, romantasy, whatever you want to call it, that our main character, Junie, is obsessed with. And every other chapter is an excerpt from that. It was essentially ACOTAR with mermaids. Like the more the plot went on, it definitely had like, as somebody who has read all of the published ACOTAR books, that's what it was. That was the vibe it gave me. So like when I was doing my journal and I was rating it on like plot and character and like all the different things that I rank on, because I don't normally rate romance books. Like in the past, I've never really rated a romance book. I don't really know why. Probably because I didn't have any, it was just like vibes, There are definitely some romance books that have stuck out in my head and that I remember more than others, but for the most part, they're just like so bingeable and you just read them and then move on. So anyway, it's been a while since I've read one and rated one, and I went with 4.25 stars because I felt like I was judging 2 books. Like, so when I was judging characters, like I really loved Junie, our main character. I really loved the side characters. Nico is the male main character that's throughout the whole book. Her brother Tay was funny and, added something to the story. Junie as a main character was multidimensional. You learned about her past. You learned about why she is the way she is. She seemed like a representation of the way the author feels about romance books and things like that. But then, do I also judge Mariah, the main character of the story within the story? And so that's kind of where I was like, because the story within the story, the romance story that Junie is obsessed with, with was very cheesy. It was very over the top. You're also receiving excerpts of it, so you're not getting a whole story arc. I mean, you kind of get a story arc, but you're not getting all of the plot points. There's no way, like essentially it would be half the size of this, and like a fantasy romance that's that size is not going to have all of the details in it that you would need from a fantasy romance. And so it felt wrong judging that, because how can you get that character development? How can you get the plot? How can you get all of that from excerpts? I thought it was cheesy. The whole book was like over the top and cheesy, which I loved. It was like very refreshing. I was reading something different. I mentioned earlier that the plot twist went a direction, like off the rails in a direction I wasn't expecting, which was pretty fun. I really liked the main character. I liked her energy. I liked how out there and in your face she was. Part of me is like, okay, the whole purpose of the book is this Junie, our main character, really like explaining why romance works for her and explaining how she's learned and grown as a person because of romance novels, specifically because of this one that she writes fan fiction for. And so then the other part of it though was this, in my opinion, cheesy, over the top romance. And so it's like, is our author making fun of them? I do think romance books are supposed to be, contemporary romance books are supposed to be fun and funny and lighthearted and things like that. And so maybe that's where it was going. It had the feels, it had the vibes. I don't think I would have read a whole book of our book that our main character was obsessed with. It wasn't quite my jam, but it didn't ruin my experience reading this because we were just getting excerpts essentially. But when I was rating it, I felt like I was rating two books. This book has very mixed reviews. I want to say it has like a 3.5 or a 3.6 on Goodreads. And I was reading some of the reviews after I read it to see why. If you are expecting a regular contemporary romance like a Beth O'Leary or an Emily Henry, that's not what you're getting here. This gets weird. Not like weird girl weird. It just gets like not romance book weird. Like the plot gets weird. If you are expecting a fantasy romance, it's not going to be that. There were some people that they were like, oh, I liked the book within the book, but not the main character or the main story arc. And then there were other people that liked the main story arc, but not the book within the book. But for me, they both just worked really well together. It made this really unique. If you had taken the other book out of it, it would have been just kind of like a really odd story. I don't know, it just added something to it. This book started with an author's note, which you don't normally see in romance books unless they're like trigger warnings or something like that. She read the author's note at the beginning, and so I did listen to it because I didn't have the physical book in front of me. And it was really worthwhile. I highly recommend it. She had a really good reason for explaining why she likes romance books. Anyway, I definitely enjoyed this. Really fast read. I essentially read it in 2 days because that's how bingeable and readable these types of books are. 4.25 stars. I will probably think about aspects of this book. The couple that gets together, you can see the plot arcs. Like it has all of those things that you want in a romance story. One of my favorite parts, let me see if I can find it, and this will not be a spoiler. At least it's not a spoiler if you've read any romance books ever. So here's chapter 17, which I just thought this kind of gives you the whole vibe of the story. This addresses tropes. It addresses the purpose of romance books. It addresses all the things you do and don't want. It gets into fan fiction and the purpose of fan fictions. This was just weird enough that I think it will stick out in my head. I also don't regret spinning to find out my next book because I'm not halfway through it yet, but again, I feel like this is going to be another book that I fly through, so I figured I would talk about that. I did, however, leave it downstairs and I'm too lazy to go get it, so I'll just put a picture of it. Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. So when I don't read a lot of mystery thrillers, but I have read your cozy mystery thrillers like the Thursday Murder Club, and then I've read like the dark mystery thrillers like Karen Slaughter, Tana French, where it is like dark and then you have your lighthearted cozy ones. This particular book, I want you to imagine Emily Henry writing a mystery book. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. The main character, it's not a romance. The main character is very glib, very witty. A murder was committed or a crime was committed of some kind. Somebody died. It was a friend of hers. It happened on the night of a wedding. The next day, they find the main character, Lucy, I forgot her name for a second. They find the main character, Lucy, walking away from where the wedding was, walking through the woods, essentially. She still is in her dress and she's covered in blood, and she ultimately becomes the suspect. They never find any evidence, and so she's never convicted or anything. The story begins, I want to say it was like 5 years later. That's what's coming to mind. She has since moved to California. Her family is still in Texas where all of this took place. It was a small town in Texas. And a podcast, a true crime podcast, has unearthed her story. I believe the sister of the girl that died reached out to the podcaster on his first season of his podcast. He solved this unsolvable crime or something like that. And so the sister reaches out to him to say like, hey, I want to find out what happened to my sister. Actually, the sister's like, I want you to prove that Lucy did it, because everybody's convinced she did it. Lucy has to come back home for various reasons. It's her grandma's birthday, but she gets roped into this podcast. The podcast is reopening this case for everyone. Our main character, Lucy, doesn't, like, she's like, well, this is what people think about me. Like, I can't change anyone's mind. She's very blunt, she's very honest, and it comes off in this glib, witty manner. Like, she reminds me of an Emily Henry character. I don't know how else to describe it. And it's refreshing. It is completely different from what I was expecting. I'm enjoying it. I'm reading it really quickly. Similarly, I can't believe how many parallels there are. Similar to this book, almost every other chapter is actually an excerpt from the podcast, is what it is. And I am listening to it in tandem while reading it. It has the podcast audio, like his little intro sounds, and they sound like interviews. You know, it'll have some coughs, it'll have some laughs, they'll start to talk over each other a little bit. So there's only two narrators on here, January Lavoie and Will Dameron. They both do an excellent job of doing many different voices, because obviously podcasts have interviews with lots of different people involved, especially like a true crime podcast. And it sounds like we're hearing from a bunch of different people. Like the podcast parts sound pretty close to an actual podcast. Those aren't the type of podcasts I normally listen to, so I guess I can't really verify, but it does go beyond that like audiobook feel. And then when we're in Lucy's perspective, which is what the other chapters are, I can tell that we're in Lucy's perspective. All of the chapters that are not podcasts start with Lucy, and so I'm wondering if later on, if we're going to start to get some other POVs. Ben is the guy that's running the podcast, so I would say he's the other like main character, because he's the other, it's not a perspective that we hear from, that's how we get the rest of the story. But it's just an interesting way of almost having these timelines converge, as you have a podcast where you have interviews where people are telling you what they know about that night or their version of the story, and then you have Lucy, who doesn't really talk about that night. She can't remember anything, so she doesn't really talk about it. She just talks about her whole experience with the event. And I kind of have predictions right now. I think it's a little early on. I'm also terrible about that stuff. I don't normally like look for clues. The name of the book is Listen for the Lie, and so part of me is like, oh, was that a lie? Was that a lie? Like, I think that everybody's lying. And so this is why I don't try to solve these things. I have some suspicions. I also have a feeling there's gonna be like a big twist or something like that. So I'm only like a third of the way through, but I figured I would do a check-in since I was talking about this, because I think I'm gonna go through this pretty quickly too. So I don't know if I'll do another check-in later. We'll see. I'm really enjoying the unique way that this book is written. It's not dark and broody, and it's not cozy either. It's a very unique mix for what I don't read a lot of mystery thrillers, but you know, for a mystery thriller that I've read. So anyway, I'm gonna go back to reading. Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. I'm glad that I gave you guys the check-in when I did at about I think it was like 1/3-ish mark or something like that. I don't read a lot of mysteries. I would definitely classify this as a mystery thriller. And at the 33% mark, I was giving you my general idea of the writing style. I do feel like it's not until you get to the end of the book before you know what is and isn't a spoiler. And so I liked that I gave the check-in when I did. By the time I got to the 50% mark, I didn't feel like there was more that I knew if I could say, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna wrap this up and then pick my next read. So I ended up giving this 4 stars. I don't think I'm gonna keep it, mostly because it's a mystery and I never really feel like these are ones that I want to keep because I know the mystery. I don't think I've ever read one where I felt like I wanted to go back and reread it in order to, like, you know, once you know the ending, then you want to look for clues. That's not really how I read mystery books. I never really reading them to try to figure out who did it. I'm just kind of reading them to get to the ending and know the whole story. I don't know. I feel like saying check your trigger warnings for a mystery thriller is kind of an oxymoron, but I guess it depends on what type of mystery thriller it is. It's got a lot of things that could potentially set people off. I will talk about some of them in the spoiler section. Some things I didn't tell you the last time that I now know are not really spoilers. Pretty early on in the book, Lucy imagines killing people. And at first you're kind of like, oh, well, that makes you look guilty. Basically, anytime she's mildly annoyed by somebody, that's what she does. About 50 pages in, so this is still well within the first third of the book, which is why I don't think that this is spoilery either. Lucy also starts to like hear voices in her head, not hallucinatory auditory voices. They're more like your intrusive thoughts. And the voices are somebody telling her, kill him, we could kill her, you know, that kind of stuff. All of that is leading you as the reader to not sure who's telling the truth. There's one line in here that I think is really good that kind of summarizes the book, and it is towards the end, but it's not a spoiler, don't worry. At the end, one of the last podcast sections that happens, Ben is interviewing Lucy. She does do a couple interviews. The line is, most of us don't change our minds once we've settled on a version of events. Everyone has made up their mind about me, and it's not changing, no matter what. And that's kind of how Lucy lives her life. That's why she's so glib and sarcastic and blunt, is because she knows what people think about her, and it's not her job to change their mind about her. She's just gonna be herself, which I was like, yep, that's true. That's kind of what the whole book is about. Okay, now I'm gonna mark this area as spoilers so I can talk a little bit more about why I give the book 4 stars. We find out that the voices that Lucy hears are actually Savannah, her friend, and they are actual conversations that her and Savannah had. You're supposed to think that Lucy is like crazy or might have had like a mental break or a split personality or something like that, but you find out that they are remnants of actual conversations. And so it kind of is like, okay, we can trust her, essentially. She still doesn't know what happened, though. I think one of my qualms with the book, everyone, literally everyone in this book is a cheater. Most of them are drunks. Many of them are abusive, especially if they're men. And I do realize that it's a small town, and I know that there are a lot of terrible people out there, and I know that small towns tend to have, well, I should say, according to television and books, small towns tend to have a lot of extra baggage that come with them. But I cannot believe that literally everyone that this woman, Lucy, has like been around is that abusive to women, and everybody cheats. Like literally everybody in this book is sleeping with everyone, which I can't imagine is really realistic, but I don't know, maybe I'm naive. I do feel like the author did that so that it's like, oh, well, maybe this person did it. Oh, well, maybe this person did it. And I understand that for a mystery book, you have to do that. But it did seem like every single person that we were supposed to thought did it because they were drunk, did it because they were cheating, like drunk and cheating, not separate things. Like people are always drunk and cheating, and abusive. A lot of the men in this book were abusive to women, like multiple men in the book were abusive to women. And again, I totally understand that that is a thing that people do. I do feel like it was overused as a plot point to make you think that this person did it. So that was one thing that I was like, okay, I feel like we could have shaved off some pages or gotten rid of a potential suspect, or at least come up with a different reason for a potential suspect. And then our main character, Lucy, hooks up with the podcaster, Ben, and I don't quite understand why that happened. I kind of came to the conclusion that make you realize that Ben is also kind of messed up the same way that Lucy is. He seems to like true crime podcasts because he is really fascinated with crime. I could see the author maybe doing a spin-off book about Ben and why he is so interested in violence and crime, but in this book, the author didn't go into that as deep or as much. Rightly so, it's not the main point of the book. And so it kind of seemed out of left field for Lucy to hook up with Ben in this way. I could see her forming a relationship, like a connection or a friendship with him, somebody that's on her side. But again, it just kind of fed into this whole like everybody's sleeping with everybody in this book. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really liked the writing style. It was very readable. The plot did keep moving forward. At some point though, I did feel like, okay, we have another alcoholic, abusive, cheating person that we're supposed to believe in. So that did start to feel a little bit repetitive. That's why I ended up going with 4 stars. Okay. Spoilers over. Overall, I did enjoy this. I won't be keeping it because I can't see rereading it. This does have some unique twists, some unique ways. When I say twists, I don't mean like the twists in the book, like the actual final result of everything is not like a big twist that made me go, oh my gosh. But the story is presented in a way that I do not see mysteries and thrillers usually being presented. That being said, I'm ready to spin for book number 3. I'm really loving all of the time that I have to just like read lately. I am teaching a summer camp next week, so I probably won't be able to read as much as I have been, but I'm still gonna pick a book because I gotta have something. Okay, so here we go. Let's see what we get. Again, I don't know what any of them are. All right, 20. All right, so, 20 is the last one. I don't remember what any of them are. So we've got a hardcover. This is definitely bigger than the last 2. Well, let's just find out what it is. I don't think it's one of my pretty books. Ooh, okay. All right. The 13th Child is a gothic retelling of, it's like a Grimm fairy tale. It's like Godfather death. I'm just gonna give you a little synopsis of the plot. It's called The 13th Child because our main character, Hazel, is the 13th child, and in this world, the 13th child will one day be given to the gods. She is given to the god of death. The god of death makes her a healer. She gets this power that she can figure out what people's ailments are and heal them. I know the story kind of goes in another direction that gets a little bit more fantasy involved, but I will save that for my mid wrap up. So I did buy this early last year. I've had it for over a year at this point, and it is one that it's been pulling me. I've been wanting to pick it up. I'm cautiously optimistic. It's a YA. This does have really high ratings though. It's like got 4 stars. I'm excited to get started on it, and I will give you a check-in hopefully when I'm halfway this time. All right, until then. I'm coming up on 50% of The 13th Child. I took the dust jacket off. I was pleased to find it has this beautiful cover underneath. Anyway, so instead of holding up the dust cover, I don't even know that I need to hold this up. I'm very undecided about how I feel about it. I'm continuing. I'm 50%. I don't think I will give it up. It's nothing like super amazing to me right now. It definitely reads, it's YA. I'm a little conflicted as to the age of our character. They tell you exactly what her age is, so I'm not conflicted on what her age is. I'm conflicted on the way she is acting and the way she is behaving and the things that are happening in her life, why the author decided to have these things happen at the age she is. We're definitely in some sort of like medieval fantasy type world with kings and queens and horses and carts and apothecaries. It's definitely that type of world. And so I understand that the world was different then and that people did things younger. There's things that happen to our main character that I'm just like, I don't understand why the author had this happen at 12 and 16 and stuff like that. So, but maybe it is more historically accurate. On the flip side, once our character is finally taken by the god, she is given the powers of a healer. And so this is one of my other qualms with the book right now is So I'm a science teacher. I have a lot of science background. I was a scientist. There are a lot of medically accurate things in this book. There are also things that would not have been medically accurate for the historical time period, which again, if it was a fantastical world that doesn't seem like our own, then I could totally, like, that could make sense. Like maybe it is a world where they know about influenzas and viruses and, you know, they don't just talk about miasmas, which is that's what they thought caused disease back in medieval times, bad auras and omens. She knows very like anatomically accurate knowledge of things and knows about mold and how it causes disease. We would have known none of those things at this point. So I think that it's the dichotomy of like, we are scientifically accurate in some regards, but then like age-wise, we are not historically accurate. Like I kind of just wish the author would have been like, here's a made-up world that's not like ours where we know these things and these gods are there. I also just like right off the bat from chapter 1, I was not pulled in. The first 50% of the book is basically exactly what is written on the dust jacket. It's nothing more or less than what it says it is. So I just heard another booktuber, I believe it was Just Martine, said recently that they read a book and they felt like they were observing the story and not in the story. I really do feel like I'm just reading a book, I'm not in the book. So it's not that it's bad, but I think that's what's making it just not as like gripping and exciting. And some of that could be because it's a YA and that's where I am in my reading journey. I'm annotating some things. There haven't really been any like majorly gripping lines that have stood out to me. I do feel like a lot of the information is just presented and you're just supposed to take it at face value. There's some like historical pieces of information that we have like no backstory for, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is a thing that everybody knows about and we haven't heard about it at all, which I'm kind of like, okay. The component that I left out earlier, at about the 50% mark, somebody from the royal family shows up, from the kingdom shows up and says, the king is sick, we need a healer. An oracle foresaw that you could help and sent us to you. And they've had all these other healers out and they haven't been able to do anything. And so she goes to the royal palace, finds out the king is suffering from something they call shivers, and it is her goal to try to heal him. But of course now she's also dealing with court politics and they're treating her like she's this backwoods young nobody that knows nothing and a simpleton. It's not even just misogyny, it's classism essentially. Nothing shocking, nothing surprising. It's exactly what it says on the back of the book, and I think maybe that's kind of why I'm very like meh about it. That being said, I would like to go ahead and spin for my next book so I can either have it lined up in case I do decide to DNF this, because I'm kind of like on the fence about it right now, then I'll at least know what's coming next. I've got my spinner wheel ready to go. Shuffle my numbers here. Okay. I'm gonna tap. Let's see what we get. Takes so long for the number. Oh, it looks like another single digit. 4. All right, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we got a hardcover, another hardcover. Let's go ahead and I wrapped these so seriously, and I was like, why am I spending all this effort wrapping these so seriously? I don't know if I've had a polka dot one yet. I can't remember. Okay. Ooh, I think I know what this is. Yeah, I'm excited about this. Okay. The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. This is the Owl Crate edition, so this is not what the book typically looks like. It does have some really cool features, but it's one of those books that I think I actually probably would have preferred the original one. Maybe once I read it, this dark, broody, lack of color cover might make more sense. So this is one I've been really excited to read. I've been wanting to read, and so I'm excited that I'm forcing myself to read it, question mark. Because I've heard nothing but really great things about it. So this is about a lady knight. We have a gentleman that can kind of go back in time, and he's a historian. He goes back in time to actually get to tell her tale and influence her tale. And it is based off of a short story by Alex E. Harrow, The 6 Deaths of the Saint, I think is what it was called. And I read that, and it was like the best short story I've ever read. I had already wanted to read this, and once I heard that those were connected, it really just like solidified my my interest in that. So this is gonna be my next book no matter what. It will either be started after I'm done with this one, or should I decide to give up on this one, then I'm gonna jump into that one. But I suspect I will go ahead and give The 13th Child an honest shot. Happy Saturday. I finished The 13th Child by Erin A. Craig. This was not my favorite. I did finish it though. I honestly think the only reason that I finished it is because I was teaching a camp this week and I didn't really have the energy to get into another book, if that makes any sense. I probably should have DNF'd it, in all honesty. This is rated pretty highly and some of me wanted to see why. I personally ended up giving this 2 stars. The beginning started out on the slower side. The first 30% was just about her story and about her life and about how she was the 13th child and she was a child of a god and basically how awful, like everybody in the book was awful. And then at about 30% is when the other part that's on the flap kicked in. I never felt connected. I always felt like I was an outsider looking in reading this story. I never felt like I was immersed in the story. I never felt like I cared about the characters. When Hazel gets called to the royal palace, I thought, okay, maybe that's where, maybe this is our main plot point. At about this point in the story, things started to happen that didn't make sense. Information was dropped and I felt like there was other information that I missed. There were a couple times when I went back to try to see if I missed something, if I skipped an entire chapter. There was other information that I think was dropped, like it was supposed to be historical lore, or like if you were reading a fairy tale, like, oh, everyone knows this. But I just felt like it was just information that was just thrown in to make the plot convenient. At least that's how it felt for me. And that just continued to happen until the end of the book. So there's the final chapter and then there's the epilogue. I don't even know what happened in the final chapter. I mean, the epilogue's pretty self-explanatory, but the final chapter before the epilogue didn't even seem like a complete plot to me. My reading log that I fill out, I don't always fill this out for everything. It asks for themes, like what are the themes of the book? I could not tell you what the theme of this book is, in all honesty. That's how I feel about it. There didn't seem to be a message on mortality or immortality. There didn't seem to be a message on right versus wrong. There didn't seem to be a message, at least a concrete message that the author was trying to get across. There wasn't a message on like social hierarchy or socioeconomic hierarchy, like ruler and power versus no, like I could not, none of it made sense to me. There were a lot of character choices that didn't make sense to me. I do not know why people like this book, like in all honesty. For comparison, I just started The Everlasting today, so I finished this last night. I'm barely in. I am like 5% of the way in. I'm already loving it. I feel like I'm in the book. I feel like I'm there with our main character going through everything. I feel the emotion. And it's not even so much that it has this like great opening line. It's just the way that it is written pulls you in. And so I am kind of wondering, why does some writing immediately pull you in and other writing like this always kind of make you feel like you're on the periphery? And I don't know what that is. That's where we'll be leaving this one. I won't be keeping it. Yeah, I'm sorry this didn't work for me, but I tried it. It's a book that I own that I have read, so I can check it off my list. I will be sure to check in with you on The Everlasting when I'm halfway through that. I am hoping that we have a 5-star on our hands. a gorgeous day, and I was gonna film this outside, but Mondays are when they do all the yard work outside, so there's a ton of lawnmowers and things like that. As it is, I had to close the windows in the bedroom, but I plan on going back outside to do some more reading. I'm exactly halfway through The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. I'm starting to understand more about why Una is depicted this way. This is a much more accurate depiction of how Una looks in the story, and also also how Owen is the gentleman. We are on the second death of Una, which is none of it is a surprise. The plot tells us it is about two people that meet over and over and over again. We have a lady knight named Una. We have a historian named Owen, and they meet over and over and over to try to change/make history is probably the best way to summarize this. And I don't think you really need to go into the book knowing anything more. It is everything that I was hoping it would be, especially after my last read, The 13th Child. This immediately pulled me in, not necessarily with like the first line. This pulls you in a completely different way. This book, I feel like I'm there with the characters. The writing is just so poetic. I am annotating so many great lines, so many just like swoon-worthy, romantic, but then also very funny. You know it's going to be a tragic book. You know people are going to die and they love each other and they do it over and over and over again, but that is counterbalanced with some really humorous parts too, and some really humorous lines that like make me laugh out loud. I am also listening to the audiobook, and it's a dual narrator audiobook, one for the gentleman and one for the lady. And the female knight is voiced by Moira Quirk. She does all the narrations for Gideon the Ninth and like Harrow the Ninth and the Loch Tomb series. And so I can't help but like think of Gideon. They look nothing alike, but I can't help but think of Gideon when I'm hearing that. But it's very fun. I think it's a good narration choice. This is, I think it's technically second person is how it's told, but the irony of feeling like I'm in the story is that really we are listening to two people tell a story to each other. You are not really a part of it, and yet you feel like you are a part of it. You feel like you are watching this tragic tale unfold. It definitely has some things that I was not expecting, not necessarily like twists or anything like that, but like how everything is working was not the way that I thought it was going to go. Sometimes when you have stories where people are repeating time over and over again, they can get repetitive. This is not a very long book. I think the whole thing is like 300 and some odd pages. Alex E. Harrow has done an excellent job of not rehashing the things that don't matter. The first life of Una Everlasting, like the first chunk of the book, we do get more backstory about Owen and about Una through like written works and things like that. When we enter into the second life, we'd skip a lot of the stuff about Owen that we don't care about anymore. I mean, we've already heard it, so it doesn't get rehashed. It very quickly recaps the things that we know. One of the things that I like, obviously, so Una is a knight. I'm gonna see if I can find it really quick. That means battles, and I have said before that I don't really like to read battles, and again, Alex E. Harrow does it excellent. I'm gonna read this part. So this is Una talking to Owen, essentially, although she's talking like you are Owen. I think that's why it feels like you're in the story, because they are telling the story to you, but you are the other person. Do not ask me to recount the battle. Every battle is the same anyway. There's a beginning and there's an end, and between them there's nothing but butchery. There were arrows flying down from the ramparts, then there were three strange booms, and then there were no more arrows. There were enemies, and then there was blood, and then there were no more enemies. There was screaming, and then there was begging, and then there was quiet. And that's it. That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 lines described an entire battle. And that is the way I like battles to be described, because she's right, they're all the same. I'm really loving this, especially compared to my previous read. I foresee this being a 5-star. Honestly, it could just keep going the way that it is, and it would be a 5-star. I've never read anything else by Alex E. Harrow. I've had, well, except for the short story that this was based off of. I've had other books of hers on my lists, like The 10,000 Doors of January, The Once and Future Witches I've looked at. I've heard of The Starling House, but I've always heard mixed reviews about those, and now I'm worried that if I hold it up to like this part, you know, like this is what I'm expecting, that I'm not going to get that. So I don't know, we'll see. But regardless, her writing, it's amazing. It's great. Okay, I think they started mowing or weed whacking closer to my house. I had to go close some more windows. I am enjoying this so much that I almost forgot I was going to pull another book. I was going to pick another book. I'm going to do that even though, hold on, I think they're going by again. Okay. I love not having to do my yard work out front. We definitely still have to like mow our fenced-in backyard. Part of our homeowners association fees goes to them maintaining all of like the front and mulching, which is great. We are not yard people. But when I'm trying to film on a Monday, it's very annoying. I'm gonna go ahead and spin my wheel here. I'm gonna shuffle it. Shuffle, shuffle. And then window glare. Oh geez, it is very nice out and glary. Okay. All right, let's see. 11. Okay, 11, 11. Ooh, 11's the skinny one. Okay, good. I think this will still be the last one for the vlog. It was definitely going to be the last one if it was a big one. And it's a hardcover. Oh, so this is number 11. Let's see what I got. Ooh, it feels very glossy. Oh, it's an aardvark. I can tell by how it feels. Okay. Ooh. Oh, is this what I think it is? Yeah, this is perfect. Excellent. This is Kill the Beast by Sarah Swift. Yeah, I think Sarah is how you say the author's name. So this was an aardvark pick a while ago, and it was one of those, I was gonna not get anything from the aardvark box, but then I had started to hear some things about this book and it sounded really good. This is a standalone fantasy, which is not something you hear very often. It's also been described as, so it's a male and female character that have a very platonic friendship. Like there is no romantasy, romance, anything like that. Like they have a genuine platonic friendship. This will also help fulfill my buzzword readathon. It's the prompt that's like, do a command or a directive. Excellent, which I just posted that video last week, I think it was. This couldn't be any more perfect. So we have Lissa is our female character, and a beast, the beast, has gone through and wreaked havoc. Oh, it's a fairy-made monster, murdered members of her family, and so she's gonna go avenge his death. Along the way, she comes across it says a melodramatic dandy. His name is Aldrich Casimir de Laurent probably. And they end up together. Aldrich is very ill-equipped for the hunt, and so he's not really being helpful, but they're kind of stuck together on this journey together. I'm also wondering, so one of our fantasy prompts is explorer, people going on an exploration, and the hard mode is if they have an animal companion. So I don't know if that dog is going to be an animal companion, but if it is, then I'll count this one instead of the other one because this will count for hard mode. It's not very long. I think this will be a good one. I don't know if it's going to be quite up to the everlasting standard, but it'll be a good one to end the vlog on. I will definitely check in when I'm done with this. I'm sure the rest of this is going to be amazing, and I'm going to hate to put it down, and I'm going to be devastated, and then this will be my last book of the vlog. And happy birthday to me and all my Goodreads. All right, until then, it's been a couple days and I have a lot to talk about. I'm gonna try to do it quickly. On my birthday, which was, I guess, 2 days ago at this point, I finished The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. I think, so in my review, I wrote that subjectively, this is a 5-star. Objectively, it's like a 4.5, 4.75. I know those are very close to each other. I know inherently it wasn't a perfect book, but I really did enjoy it. There were so many good, meaningful, poignant quotes about love and about what love does to you and your choices. I really liked the message on history, on the history that we write versus the actual history that occurred. You know, I've always inherently known that you don't just blindly trust what is written in textbooks and written historically. That is one person's story, but that was a big thing that she touched on in here. I was a little worried about where the story was going. I was afraid she was going to do some really bizarre twist that reminded me of a movie that my dad made me watch years ago. My dad always makes me watch weird movies anyway, but it didn't go that way. I ultimately did like where it ended. I think the plot is where I like knocked it down a 1/4 of a star or whatever because of the way that it kind of went. It's short. It's, 300 and some odd pages. Our villain character in here, there are some choices that they made that I don't want to say don't make sense. We don't necessarily know enough of their backstory to truly understand them, but I was okay with that. I appreciated the fact that Harrow did this in such a short book. I appreciated the fact that I didn't have this 500-page full world building back history novel, because that's just not the way it's written. It's written as these short clips of two people talking to each other and historical writings about Una Everlasting, and I didn't need the other person's story, if that makes sense. It really made the book about Owen and Una is what it made the book about. Overall, I really enjoyed this. I can see why it's not like a perfect 5-star for everyone. It really worked for me. I think I'm also going to give you a check-in for Kill the Beast. I'm not halfway. I'm about a third of the way right now. Kill the Beast it's a debut. I think I forgot that it was a debut, and it is really good, especially, I don't even want to say it's really good for a debut. It's really good, and it's surprising that this is a debut, in my opinion. So it's narrated by Moira Quirk, which is perfect. Like, that's 2 books in a row, and I think that it's the perfect voice for our main character. Our main character is very like jaded and revengey, just wants to do what she needs to do to get revenge for her brother's death. I loved the opening chapter. It's very visual. Like I feel like I'm reading a movie. There are parts of this, I don't know why, but there are parts of this that remind me of Leigh Bardugo, kind of Leigh Bardugo's Alex Stern character from the Ninth House series, but also something about the way the story is told reminds me of Six of Crows. I don't know why. It's not multi-POV. It's not the same type of world. I don't know why. That was just a name that popped in my head when I was reading the first 10-20% or something. There's just something about the way that it is written. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. We have Lysa is our main character. In my head, I keep saying Lyssa because it's Lyssa, but the audiobook says Lysa. Lysa is known as the Butcher. She kills fairy or fairy-related creatures. This is a world with fairies and witches. We have trolls and goblins. This is 1870-ish. It's a made-up world. It's not like England or something like that. There are two types of fairies. There's good fairies and bad fairies. These are very much remnant of like Emily Wilde's scary fairies. If you are familiar with Irish fae lore, you can make barters with fairies and they will do helpful things for you, but if you wrong a fairy, they take offense to it. In this world, humans had a relationship with the good fairies, but as the world expanded, I mean, you can almost think of it like Industrial Revolution, what we've done to animals in nature. They encroached on that border realm between fairies and humans, and the fairies are kind of angry about it. And humans have almost completely wiped fairies out. So the bad fairies create these creatures where the sole job of the creature is to kill humans. One of those creatures killed our main character, Lysa's brother, and she's basically on this revenge warpath to get the beast that killed her brother. Her goal is to wipe out all things fairy related. She works with some witches, which are really fun. They're like the fun, quirky type of witches. So she hasn't made any progress, and Alaric, I think is how you say it. She calls him Al. He hates it. Oh, Alderic. I knew I wasn't saying it right. Alderic, he has this big, long, fancy, rich person name, has reached out to her and wants to hire her to kill the beast, but he has things that she needs to find him. So they have to work together. There are other factions in this world that are trying to save the fairies. There's other people that are against Lysa and are out to get Lysa. There are people that hire Lysa. Like, there's a lot of opposition in this book. It's not just the beast. The point where I'm at right now, Lysa has decided to work with Aldrich. She's been told they have to work together, and now they are getting ready to go on their quest to get all of the materials they need to create the weapon that will kill the beast. I already have a suspicion as to what I think a big twist is going to be. I'm not going to share it in case I'm right. And honestly, even though I have a suspicion of what the big twist might be, I don't care. I'm still really enjoying the story. I love the way that our main character is written. I love that Al is her complete polar opposite, and yet they have to work together. I love the little bit of humor that our two witch characters have brought in. They make me chuckle, like I smirk while I'm reading it. It's really enjoyable. It's a really fast read, and I am fulfilling a buzzword reading challenge thing here too. So I am correct. She does have an animal companion. Brandy is a bull mastiff, and he goes around with her and travels with her. They're definitely going to do lots of exploring, and so I think this will also fulfill hard mode for my Our Fantasy Bingo. Right now I'm really enjoying it. Even though I think I know where it's going, I'm okay with that. I'm excited to still read to figure out if I'm right, and maybe it'll surprise me and it'll go a completely different direction. I think I'm just gonna wait and check in with you guys when I'm done. Don't knock me over. You can sit right there. I finished Kill the Beast by Sarah Swift. I'm glad I gave you guys a check-in when I originally did. I didn't really have much more to say at the 50% mark, and as I anticipated, it was a really quick, fast read. This was a really good, light-hearted, standalone fantasy, not something that you see very often. It had just the right amount of world building without being too complicated. It had a good balance of a witty, funny main character. Actually, a lot of the characters, not just the main character, were really funny, but also it had emotional depth, and the relationship between the two main characters was definitely platonic. It never felt like it was going in any other direction. There was no hint of romantic or anything like that, which was kind of refreshing. The twist that I called was correct, but I still enjoyed it. At no point was I frustrated with the main main character, like, why don't you recognize this? None of that happened. I feel like the author laid out the plot in a way that I felt like it was totally plausible that our main character, Lysa, that she didn't see it coming. I gave this 5 stars because I couldn't really see any reason not to. It's not like some big thinker. The writing is very straightforward and easy to access. I was satisfied with the ending. I enjoyed the ride. Like, I hesitate to call it cozy. There were times when I was like, oh my gosh, what are the decisions that are going to be made? Am I going to be happy with them? I had the interest, I had the intrigue. It was a really good, nice little package. Thus concludes my birthday Read Down My TBR. Honestly, this was super successful. I had quite the variety. I had a romance, I had a mystery, and then I ended with some fantasies. I had 2 4-stars, I had 2 5-stars. I did have that ugly 2-star in there, but it's a book that I've been wanting to read. So in terms of like the success of reading down my TBR, for sure, I got through 5 books in, I think it was about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks, and really good reads. I was excited to read all of them. In general, they were very good reads. It was really fun to not have to worry about what I was going to pick. No matter what, it was something that I wanted to read. It did feel like a birthday treat. I think this birthday experiment was a success. Not every book was a favorite, but most of them were a great time, which is exactly what I wanted for this month. One of the things that I've kind of realized over the past year is that sometimes what is more difficult is picking the books that I want to read. And so it was really fun to kind of gamify it with only books that I was excited to read. Every once in a while, you need that push to read that book that's been sitting on your shelves for a while or that you've been intimidated by. But I have so many books that I like genuinely want to read, and sometimes it's just hard to pick when. I wish I could read them all at the same time. I'd love to know if you could pick one book from your shelves and guarantee that you would love it as like a little birthday gift, what would you choose? Or if you're feeling kind of shy and you just want to leave a gift-related emoji in the comments to let me know you were here, I would appreciate it. If you've been enjoying the Read Down My TBR series, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next month's post. Next month's experiment, I'll be looking at fireworks and flops for the 4th of July. So I'll be reading the highest rated book on my TBR, and I'll be reading the lowest rated book on my TBR. We'll see if the Goodreads ratings actually mean anything at all. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy reading! It's my birthday, and I, of course, just want to buy books for my birthday. So I was going to share all of the books that I have gotten recently, but because it's so many, I'm going to try to do it quickly. The ones that are going to help fulfill HRCYED prompts, I'm going to mention what HRCYED prompts I plan on using them for, so if you need some HRCYED ideas, don't skip, just watch. I'll try to be quick.